I call the 2,397th meeting of the Milwaukie City Council to order. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall or joining the Zoom webinar. The meeting is being broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and Comcast Cable Channel 30 within city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall or participate via Zoom. If you are interested in speaking, please let staff know by filling out a yellow comment card for those at City Hall or by emailing ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov for those on Zoom. When it is time to take public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, and Zoom participant list and chat. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. We ask that all Zoom participants who intend to speak label their Zoom username to show their first and last names for the record. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. For more information, contact the city recorder at 503-786-7502. Servicios de traducción en español está disponible cuando sea solicitado. Se pide al público que solicite servicios de traducción y otros servicios de accesibilidad por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión. Para obtener más información, llama al secretario de la ciudad a 503-786-7502. Translation services are also available in other languages. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The City of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya Etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. And moving on to our announcements. Join a community conversation tomorrow called Housing and Belonging at the Ledding Library. This event, facilitated by Paul Soucy from the Oregon Humanities Conversation Project, will explore common assumptions and perspectives about the experience of houselessness. City Manager Ann Ober will hold another open door session this Friday, February 23rd, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. here at City Hall. Anyone can drop by to ask questions, raise concerns, or just learn more about what the city is currently doing. Join Gladstone author Sarah L. Sanderson and the founder of the Oregon Remembrance Project, Taylor Stewart, on Wednesday, February 28th at 6 p.m. for a discussion of Sarah's book, The Place We Make: Breaking the Legacy of Legalized Hate. The discussion will focus on uncovering difficult truths of the past and how we might transform those challenges into opportunities for a new kind of future. The event takes place at the Ledding Library. Learn about multiple transportation projects at an open house on Thursday, February 29th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. here at City Hall. Drop in anytime to learn more and ask questions about the Oregon Department of Transportation's Route 224 improvement project from Southeast 17th Avenue to Southeast Rusk Road, Milwaukee's Monroe Greenway project, Milwaukee's Transportation System Plan update, and the Kellogg Creek Restoration and Enhancement Project. So that's the end of that one. Sorry. Celebrate the start of construction of Balfour, Bowman Bray, and Scott Parks on Saturday, March 9th from 10 to 11 a.m. This event will include brief remarks, a kickoff ceremony, yard games, and refreshments. The event will be held at Balfour Park, which is over near Providence Milwaukie Hospital. Please note that parking near the park is limited. Carpooling, riding TriMet, bicycling, or walking to the event is encouraged. For more information about each of these events, please visit the city's homepage at milwaukieoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555. Any other events anybody needs to mention? Nope, okay. Then with that, I will call forward our Equity Inclusion Coordinator, Gabriela Santoyo Gutierrez, to introduce the proclamation celebrating Black Excellence Month. I believe she's going to be joined by Siona Belai, one of the Equity Steering Committee members and a downtown Milwaukee business owner. Thank you for coming, ladies.
Hi, Council. It's good to see all of you. And congratulations on your appointment, Councillor Abma. Welcome. I'm honored to present today the Black Excellence Month Proclamation. Alongside me, as you introduce, Siona Belai, who also, along with a member of the Equity Steering Committee, is a construction business owner in Milwaukee. Now, I'd love to share some background and give credit to the original contributors to this proclamation. This includes Milwaukie Historical Society, Scott Stafford, John Hennington, Josh Freeman, and previous Council President Desi Nicodemus. Some additional background is that the City of Milwaukee recognized its first Black History Month proclamation, originally titled African American History Month in 2017. Today, and since 2021, it's been renamed Black Excellence Month as an intentional reframing to celebrate key innovators, inventors, educators who are not well known, but whose work and sacrifice have contributed to the advancement of technology, medicine, education, and society. Now, I also wanted to highlight in our last week's monthly equity chat, which are internal trainings for staff, we learned how Black excellence and Black history is American history. We also mentioned how these discussions and openness to new information should continue year-round discussions and not only in February. So for people interested in learning more, our library has a great selection in honor of Black Excellence Month at the front of their entrance for all different levels of readers. Now, I wanted to give space to Siona in case she wanted to add any other comments.
I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be invited here as part of the Milwaukee's celebration of Black Excellence. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming.
And with that, I just transition back to you, Mayor Beatty, if you would read the proclamation.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. I appreciate your words of introduction and setting some of the context for this. And so, whereas each year since 1986, the United States observes Black History Month, a month-long celebration every February to acknowledge the struggles and accomplishments of Black and African Americans for racial justice that stirred the very conscience of our nation. And whereas Black Americans for generations have courageously led the pursuit of justice and equality, from Harriet Tubman to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to Bell Hooks and beyond, whereas Black Americans have made significant contributions to our nation's economic, educational, political, artistic, literary, scientific, and technological advancements, despite historical and current injustices. And whereas in Milwaukie, we celebrate the contributions of Black Americans who have been active in our community, including entrepreneurial boxing promoter George Moore, Sayona Belai of Zana Construction, and Milwaukie Pastry Kitchen proprietors Curtis and Dorothy Hadley, among others. And whereas our nation struggles to overcome the systemic racism that results in persistent inequality, the importance of a systematic change and greater national dialogue to promote understanding, break down barriers, build community is essential. And whereas as individuals, we must learn more about the history of Black Americans generally, and in Oregon in particular, and work to build a Milwaukie where every person has equitable access to educational and employment opportunities and housing. Now, therefore, I, Lisa Beatty, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, and with the full support and sponsorship of the City Council, do hereby proclaim February 2024 to be Celebrating Black Excellence Month in Milwaukie and recommend its observance with appropriate programs and activities. Thank you for that. And I would sort of just point back to one such appropriate program and activity was in the announcements we read earlier, which is the Oregon Remembrance Project and the discussion on February 28th at 6 p.m. at the library of the book, The Place We Make, Breaking the Legacy of Legalized Hate. So that's one kind of activity that people might want to do, and there are other things all around the community, and I encourage people to engage in some appropriate commemoration of Black Excellence Month. Okay.
Great, thank you. I did want to add that event is also sponsored by our Equity and Inclusion Office.
Oh,
so it's almost
okay.
on purpose we partnered with the library.
Great.
Thank you all.
Great, thank you. Okay, so our next item is a report on proposed pod village by Do Good Multnomah Chief Executive Officer Daniel Hovanes. Is that pronounced correctly? Hovanes, okay, great.
Yeah, hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Hovanes, CEO for Do Good Multnomah. This is my friend and colleague, Chris Gardner. He's the Director of Communications and Marketing for Do Good. So a little bit about Do Good. We were founded back in 2015 with the simple idea that every veteran deserves to have a home and that no veteran should slip through the cracks. And when I joined Do Good a little over 6 years ago, worked as a case manager, an overnight case manager, and there's about 6 staff in all. And we had one shelter in the basement of the church that housed 40 veterans. A lot has changed in 6 years, and Do Good has grown tremendously. We are now, I think, about 15, 16 programs throughout Clackamas, Multnomah County, and the city of Vancouver. And the project that we just proposed to Clackamas County is kind of right up on the borders here of the city of Milwaukie. And so want to be able to come here, and I've spoken with Rebecca, and she was kind enough to write us a letter of support for this program. But really simply put, this village is a direct response to the needs of the community and really focusing on clean and sober. And I've been doing this for a long time, and when I talk to a lot of the participants within Do Good, one thing that they're asking for is just a place to have a chance to remain sober, a chance to remain clean. All of our shelters, and most of our shelters, are low barrier. So, we don't judge anyone for coming in being high or drunk. We kind of just have a rule, just as long as you're a good community member, you can have a bed. But that's not good enough for some folks, and that temptation is too much. So this village will promote clean and sober. We will have 2 certified alcohol drug counselors that will be working 7 days a week there to support the 30 or so folks that will be participants. The property, which is owned by Michael, and he asked me not to point him out, but I'm pointing him out now. He owns the land, and he has been a great partner in wanting to collaborate and wanting to do something for his community. And so his property is just under an acre, already has a house on there, and it has a shop on the land as well. And so being able to use the house and use the shop as community space, as kitchen space, places to do showers and laundry and all that, already cuts the cost right in half from just having to remodel this instead of building brand new infrastructure and then building 30 pods on top of this land. The unique thing about this, and some of you may know that Do Good runs the Veterans Village out in Clackamas, and that village is out kind of the industrial area of kind of like Dave's Killer Bread, so there's not a whole lot of neighbors out there. This village is right in the heart of a neighborhood. And so, yes, it has challenges, but it also has so many pros to where we can have a community and these neighbors to come alongside and support and champion this project. Will people be pissed? Absolutely. But that's my job, to go and explain why we're doing this and alleviate the fears. Because what they're angry about is not the project, but they're just scared. I get it. They're coming into their neighborhood and it's scary. Get it. But this has an opportunity to be something really great. On top of being clean and sober, it's also a response to the need of working with local healthcare, such as Providence. I know we're all well aware of what happened as a participant was exited, discharged out of Providence, and later passed away. This village offers an opportunity to set aside pods for Providence or for local medical facilities to discharge safely a participant in our care. And then as well have their nurses come to us and administer care if need be, instead of just putting them back out on the streets and really have no chance. So, yeah, I wanted to be able to chat with you all. I'm very thankful for this opportunity to chat with you and just even just being open to this conversation. I'm thankful for. I'm assuming I probably forgot something.
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, the reason that I was here is, Do Good has recently opened two programs, one in the St. John's neighborhood of North Portland and the one in the city of Vancouver. And the amount of community support that we've seen from this coalition process that Daniel was alluding to by getting the neighbors involved, converting folks from NIMBYs to YIMBYs where they say yes in my backyard. It's actually incredibly satisfying as a communications person, as a marketing person, as a person dedicated to this mission. And so I believe in it deeply, and I know that often all it takes is a little bit of a heads up and lots of question answering and a coffee with someone as thoughtful as Daniel to really transform the way that a neighborhood can see what it's like to have a full spectrum of neighbors be among them.
So, I think I'm supposed to open up for Q&A. You got any questions?
Well, a first question, you said you were veterans, so is this also a veterans facility or not necessarily?
Great question. No, not veteran specific, no.
Okay.
But when Do Good does a program, we try to set aside 15% of the units, the pods, the beds for veterans. And we get that 15% because that is kind of the need in the community. So 15% of the veterans make up, the 50% of the houseless population. Very well overrepresented, and so we just take that number, and so that's 5 pods or something like that.
Okay. Thank you. Other people have questions? Well, actually, doesn't matter. However you want to do it. We usually start there and work our way across.
Hi, Daniel. Good to see you, and thank you for all of your work. Especially the work that's expanding into Clackamas County. I wanted to say thank you because I think that what you're doing is amazing. I think it's very much needed. I guess my question is, I know that the site is just outside the city of Milwaukie, and I wrote the letter of support for your application because I think that it will serve members of our community and people who have ties to North Clackamas County. And I guess, so I'm wondering, for cities that are trying to build out this continuum, where's the best place for us to plug in your opinion?
I think just being able to take me out for coffee or a drink and just asking questions. I think so much is just folks being curious. Just be curious of the work that we are doing and the problem that's out there. I had in Portland, everyone's running for election. And so people are very excited to take me out for a drink and just ask me questions about all the things. And so I did one yesterday, and it was a member of St. John's, and just the assumptions that this individual has about the houseless population is wrong. And so being able to shed light on that, and the folks who you all are leaders of the city here, and so being able to offer, expertise in this goes a long ways. Like, you all are making the decisions, and so it's my duty to inform you of what's actually happening and what I think is a good opportunity to do well in this. Yeah.
Great. Well, even though you're just outside the boundaries, I'm considering you part of our continuum in
Absolutely.
Milwaukie. So thank you. I appreciate you being here tonight.
Yeah, just to echo Councilor Savinger, thank you for being here and for the work you do. Just to speak on the Veterans Village, I used to be I was the former chair of the Veteran Advisory Council for Clackamas County, so I'm very familiar with Veterans Village and what you guys do there, the programming. So it's a very successful program, and I wish there is more than one of them, right?
Yeah.
It's entirely needed. A couple of questions for this one. What do you see, aside from potential the neighborhood and community members, what do you see as your biggest hurdle in getting this shelter up and running? That's my first question.
Yeah, I think it's working with Clackamas County and seeing this is something that they actually want to do. And I know transparently they have just released an RFP to do something very similar of another village that's right next to the Veterans Village. And so I guess the biggest challenge is oversaturation of the village model. But I would say working with the neighbors is obviously alleviating fears. And part of that is, we're going to do background checks for everyone there. And that would just be just a necessity, not trying to screen folks out, but just recognizing, we are in a neighborhood and it's just our due diligence to do this right. I think between that and dealing with the neighbors are probably the biggest challenges.
And my second question is, how long do you anticipate providing shelter? Like, what's the transition timeline if you've even gotten that far?
Yeah, you shoot for 90 days. That's always been like the thing, 90 days. However, it takes at least 90 days to get folks what we call a document ready. So that's getting your driver's license, your social security, and your birth certificate. And that's at least 90 days. I think what's helpful, and I think Clackamas County does an okay job, is doing outreach. And ideally is trying to find folks and start that process prior to them being in shelter, so you can be more realistic to the 90-day thing. But I would get up to 180, which depends on folks' barriers. Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I got right now. Thank you again for everything you guys are doing, and I just want to recognize Mr. Paul Edgar in the audience for all the work he's done for not just veterans but for the community at large. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Council President Massey?
I just want to say thank you, Daniel, to you and all who work for Do Good organization. But I really want to call out the landowner.
Absolutely.
What an altruistic act you have done for a lot of people. And I know you don't want to be recognized, but I'm not going to let you go. And I want to thank you, because that's really above and beyond. Mm-hmm. So from a heartfelt thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Admiral, did you have any questions?
How common is it for the low barrier model? Because I feel like as though I've heard that sometimes requiring clean and sober before you enter is a huge barrier for many.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that this village isn't for everyone. And so it's a very niche population we're trying to serve here. We do most of our work in Multnomah County, and so through the joint office and all of our shelters are low barrier there. And so being able to offer something that has more of a niche, because there is quite a few folks who want this and need this. And so I just, really want to be clear that this isn't going to solve homelessness for everything. It's just one piece of the puzzle for it. So,
okay, thanks. That helps. And then another question was, what's your primary source of funding to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one will be entirely from Clackamas County. And so they had a little over $5 million available to like the city initiative or city-led initiative. This is what we applied for this. Yeah.
Okay. And the last question is, how many do you intend to serve?
At least 30 pods around there. And so overall, try to think if you could turn over each pod 3 times in a year. So, hopefully around 90 to 100 folks within 12 months. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Is that Councilor Khosrowshahi? Okay. No, go ahead.
I was just curious, when do you anticipate starting the community outreach and holding those town halls and stuff?
Sure. Hopefully we know by the end of this month that this is a project that Clackamas County wants to move forward with. And then once we get that approval, then we would start communications.
Still waiting for that approval, okay.
Yes. We plan on doing at least 2 community outreach engagement events. One that would be like a town hall style in person, and then one that would be virtual. And so it's trying to make sure it's accessible to everyone. And then I always put my email out there and make myself available for coffees and all that, meet one-on-one. That's normally the most successful avenue of dealing with folks is being one-on-one.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming. And I know we have Mr. Edgar who wants to speak in support. But I think people asked the questions that I had. So thank you. And we'll watch for end of this month, end of February. Okay. So that's soon. That's soon. You're expecting to have a go, no go pretty soon. Okay, great. Well, we'll look forward to that news. All right, and then I invite Mr. Edgar forward. We do typically keep public comments to 3 minutes, so I will ask you to please do that. And yeah, you want the red to come on.
Yeah. My name's Paul Edgar. I live in Oregon City, but I've been a member of the Clackamas County Veterans Advisory Council, and I've been a member of the Community Action Board for Clackamas County. And when some of us have been lucky in life, and I consider myself lucky, it's like God told me it's time for me to start paying back, and become involved and do what I can. This is an opportunity, and I met Michael back here, the owner, and just talking about it. And some things in government just are pushing rocks uphill, and they take forever and ever. And all of a sudden you find, when you survey the property and you see this beautiful house, and you see that we envision how we could lay out the cottages or the pods through it, and you have this equipment or this barn, which is huge, that will take care of a lot of stuff. It's there, and we could put kitchens and bathrooms and showers and meeting spaces, and it all exists. And boy, that reduces the curve of what it takes to make something like this happen. And the need is so critical. We don't have places, period, in Clackamas County where to be proactive. If somebody is about to hurt themselves or hurt someone else, without a place to take someone, our hands are tied legally. And we don't have that place in Clackamas County. And half of my desire to come here and talk to you people is about being proactive, about how this commission can be proactive. And look up to Clackamas County or to Metro and say, hey, we've got an opportunity to do something. And it's right in our backyard, maybe not right in our city limits, but it's in our backyard. And this is an opportunity to save lives. This is just simply, it's an opportunity to save lives, turn lives around. Nothing is simple. And it's going to take a moment. But in our veteran village, by the way, we've had literally an 80% success rate of veterans going into the veteran village that never go back in the street. Dugan manages that for Clackamas County. I was part of the team that recommended that to the Clackamas County ages ago. But we got it done, and we have an opportunity right now to replicate some of the thinking, the positive sides. And that's what my hope is that we lean on everyone, more than just letters, just recommendations. It's going face to face. That's what I'm trying to do with you guys. I'm just saying, we have an opportunity to save lives, and it's critical, and nothing happens until there's a groundswell that says, okay, let's do it. Please, thank you. That's all I want to do, is just help you become the groundswell.
Thank you. Okay. Well, we thank you guys for coming in. We're gonna move on to the community comments. This is the part of the agenda. Wait. Okay. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community member comments regarding city business that is not already on the agenda. Before we begin, is there follow-up from the February 6th community comments, Ms. Ober?
The follow-up will be taking place at the March 5th meeting.
Right. Thanks. Right. For those in person who wish to speak, please submit a yellow comment card found on the table just inside the chamber door. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand reaction to alert staff that you wish to speak. And when instructed to begin, click the microphone option to unmute yourself. If you are calling in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. You may also submit a comment via email to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during community comments may be new, this is not the time for discussion, but the city manager will respond at the next council meeting to those comments that require follow-up. And so I have David Chitsazan. I learned pizza's on. Pizza's on. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, really quick, just want to say the do good, all of that stuff sounds amazing, and I see they're gone, but I would love to talk to them. I live in Hector Campbell area, and I would love to host one of those coffee events, because that is really rad. That is cool. And I'm realizing I said rad again. My wife told me after the last time I spoke at a city meeting, I say rad too much. So it's that or dope. So take your pick, everyone. But I'm here to talk about a nice simple topic, which is the war in Palestine that's going on right now. I know we've got 2 minutes to talk about a deeply nuanced issue. I'm more than happy to talk about that in full detail at any point, or I can talk to members of the community to help host a learning session. Would be more than happy to, but I'm just here to talk about the last 137 days in Palestine. I provided the city council with a couple of pieces of information on what's been happening there. And as a Middle Eastern American, I just want to say it's been really hard. It is. If you've seen the videos of what's been happening in Gaza, especially, and in the West Bank, it guts me. So, I'm Iranian American, and in Iranian, dad is Baba. So I call my dad Bub. And I'm sorry, I'm going to get emotional. I don't know. It's not dope. I don't know. It is dope. But I say Baba. My son, my 2-year-old, calls my dad Baba. I was watching a video yesterday of a poor 8-year-old girl who was calling out. She was putting her dad into a coffin or into, like, they don't have coffins, but she was screaming out saying, Bubba, I'm so sorry that I ever said no to cleaning the house. I've cleaned the house 1,000,000 times for you. Just to be alive. And what we've seen in Gaza in the last 137 days, half of Gaza's homes have been destroyed, 392 educational facilities have been destroyed, only 11 hospitals are partially functioning. I'm realizing my time is being short. There's a lot of information. I think we've all been seeing what's happening in Palestine. And one thing that I really, really respect that Milwaukie has done in the past is Milwaukie, if something needs to be done, we don't wait on it. We just act. We wanted to be ahead of the game in the electric car system. We put a lot of electric car stations. 20 days into the Ukraine war, and I'm sorry, I'm a little bit over, if council will allow another minute or so. 20 days into the Ukraine war, then Councilor, now Mayor Beatty, proposed a resolution to condemn the attacks on the civilians and especially the destroying of a community and the cultural richness of an area. And I have sent the council a proposed proclamation. It would be something with no fanfare, anything crazy. I really think that Milwaukie has done a good job of being above board on just getting things done. And I think what's been happening there has been really, really challenging. I have a coworker who is Palestinian, and she was telling me she's Palestinian, her husband's Palestinian. She's only been checked in on 5 times on the thing from anyone. I'm one of those 5 people who've checked in on her. The Middle Eastern community is having a really hard time, and I think a proclamation would be a very, very good message to the community saying that killing civilians is wrong and genocide is wrong. And I know I'm over a minute over, so I can read the proposed proclamation or discuss anything with you guys, but I want to be conscious of your time. Again, it's 3 minutes. I open.
Meeting, or with the city manager, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you all very, very much. And again, in honor of Black History Month, I'm going to tell you a really terrible quote, 5 more seconds, and I promise I'm done, which is, there's a Harriet Tubman quote. This guy says, "Don't be someone Harriet Tubman would have shot." I know that sounds really stupid. But when it comes to genocide, I highly recommend being on the side of the oppressed people versus being on the side of the oppressor. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you. All right, tonight's consent agenda includes minutes of the City Council, January 9th, 2024, Council Retreat, January 16th, 2024 work session, and January 16th, 2024 regular session. I had a question about the first. It had said some things that I did not recall. So I don't know whether to pull it off or to just discuss it here.
Mayor, is this the question you had for me?
Uh-huh.
So while we were discussing hiring a climate staff person, there was a request by Councilor Savigny for me to send the grant that we submitted for the $250,000 at the time. It was moved down to $180,000. I still don't have it. So I'm going to be honest, I have had multiple conversations about this, but the way that the grant was submitted is not actually by the city, and it wasn't a document that called out the city of Milwaukie. So I'm trying to get our specific section of what the workload is that we've committed to, and I will provide that. But that's where it came from. Is it, if I remember correctly, I believe it was Councilor Massey had a conversation about having some concerns generally about what happens with those dollars. Councilor Savigny asked to see the grant request, and then you had said, I'm also interested. If you'd like to change that, I don't, that was my recollection, but.
So this was the multi-city grant request.
It was
Okay.
millions of dollars. We are one section of those funds. And I just have been unable to get from our staff what exactly our portion of the money has to be spent on. And currently the director who's in charge of those funds is out of the country. So I'm not gonna be able to get it any faster either. Sorry.
Okay. Well, now that you explain that, that does ring a bell. But when I started reading these minutes about grant paperwork, I was like, grant paperwork.
Well, and it also, in that meantime, Natalie has left the city, so that's added some complexity to me getting the information. So it's, we will get it to you. We haven't brought it back yet because I don't have it yet.
Okay. I guess, I mean, I don't know if anyone else feels like the minutes as written are a little unclear because it goes from Councilor Savage-Ord outlined a funding proposal for climate and parks work to discussing grant paperwork. That's not really explained. I don't know.
Is there an easy way to insert a descriptor, a title for that grant into that language?
Regional multi-city climate grant, something like that.
That works for council. We can include that and you can adopt as revised if there's agreement among council.
Okay. Does that generally sound? Okay. Okay, so I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as modified.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as modified, introducing new words to describe the grant paperwork. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. None heard. The consent agenda passes unanimously. All right. And then we have the update on our transportation systems plan from Planning Manager Laura Weigel and City Engineer Jennifer Garbely. Hello.
Weigel, Planning Manager. You all know this is Jen Gartley, she's the city engineer, and I just want to say thank you for having us here tonight. And I'm really excited to be talking to you all tonight about actual work on the transportation system plan.
Oh, yeah.
I know I talk really loud already, so you may not want me amplified. Anyway, I'm really excited about being here tonight to talk about the transportation system plan work that's being done instead of talking to you about work that we want to be doing on the transportation system plan, which is what I talked to you about for a long time. So thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And welcome, I guess I should say welcome back to the council. Thank you for serving in this interim time. And so with that, I'm just going to kick off right into it. The agenda for the night, we're going to do a little bit of overview of the TSP and what it is. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the work that's been done thus far, which is on, we've done a draft plans and policy framework, a community profile, an engagement plan, financial forecast, and we've also looked at draft goals and policies. And we have done all of that with the advisory committee. And so also then I will kind of give you a top line overview of those documents. And I know that there was a lot of information in your packet. I'm not going to go through all of the things that were in there, but just give you a high level, and then you can feel free to ask me any questions about any of the information that we're going to go over tonight. And then we'll talk about the schedule and the next steps. Although I think, okay, transportation overview. All right, identifies transportation goals and policies, and that's something that we adopt into the comprehensive plan. We look at the transportation system and how it's functioning now and where it's working and where it's not working, and kind of catalog the deficiencies in the plan. We look at what we're going to need in 20 years based on our population projections, and looking at the goals and policies of the city and what the community is looking to accomplish here in the city. And ultimately identifies and prioritizes projects, which then get put into the capital improvements plan. It's got to be consistent with regional and statewide goals and statewide rules. And it's also required for federal funding. So this is something that every city here in the state of Oregon does, and lots of other cities. We have one already, as you're well aware. If you're not, we've done a lot of work already. This is from 2017. We went through and did all of these inventories, and we talked to the community a whole bunch, and we had a really great plan. So what we're doing now is we just need to go in and update that. You know, what's been done in the since we last updated it, what have we accomplished, and then understanding what we still have to accomplish based on what we're hearing from community members and what they want to see for the future, based on our already kind of established other goals and policies that we have throughout the city. So we've got some objectives for the TSP. We want to identify and address the range of needs and preferences, specifically for historically underrepresented groups. We want to remove barriers to equitable outcomes for all community members. We want to engage with our neighborhood district associations, our community members, business owners, first responders, other civic groups, basically anybody who will talk to us about all these things. We would like to talk to them. Then we want to have our plan make the transportation facility safe for everyone, especially focus on vulnerable users. We want to design and implement and maintain a balanced and multimodal transportation system with an emphasis on pedestrians, cyclists, rollers, and transit users. We want to reduce the vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions. We need to respond to population growth, different land use patterns, revise state statutes, and identify community priorities. And then, importantly, we need to find a flexible and implementable funding strategy. So this is kind of just an overview to show you kind of where we are at the moment and then what's coming. As you can see, we've got community engagement opportunities up there at the top. So our first upcoming time that we're going out to talk to all of the community is on March 21st. And so I just want to invite you all, tell everybody you know. It's going to be here in City Hall. We're going to talk about everything that we've done up until this point, but then we're going to have a little workshop about the goals and policies to make sure that we're getting them right. And then we also have a series of advisory and technical committee meetings ahead of that. Oh, I can't just pick one. I have to have them all.
You want this one?
Yeah, sure. Okay, we'll just double dip them all. And so we've got the planning and policy framework. That's the work that we've kind of done up until this moment, along with the community engagement plan. Then we're in the process of looking at the goals and policies. After that, we've got the performance measure analysis, livable streets analysis, the system conditions and the gaps need, and then future conditions and solutions and transportation projects funding strategy. So right here, this is just kind of the task that we have to do within the time frame that we have to do them. And we are working on this probably through the middle of 2025 at this point. Okay, so how are we reviewing this? So I thought it might just be useful to kind of talk a little bit about our process for doing all of this. So we've got this team, we've got planners, and we've got engineers, and we've got our consultant team, which is a good sized consultant team. We've got some folks from an equity group. We have some folks that work on code. We have some folks that do transportation planning. So we kind of get the ball rolling, and we go out and we do our homework and we study all of our plans and policies and all of the things that we've done in the past and looked at what's worked and what hasn't. And then we produce these documents. And then we take these documents to the advisory committee. And we also take the same documents to the technical committee. And then we ask for feedback on those documents. And then we bring those documents out to the community and then ask the community to weigh on them. And then we take them to the planning commission, and then ultimately we bring them to you. And so what we're trying to do is every single set of documents is essentially, it's the same. We're bringing you all the same materials. It's just that we're updating it as we go through the process to make sure that we're talking to everybody all along the way. And then ultimately you all are the ones who will adopt the transportation system plan. And so we've also got the framework within which we have to do this work, right? So it's about our city policies, our city aspirations. It's based on our comprehensive plan, our zoning code, our climate action plan, our SAFE program, the Neighborhood Hubs program, your council goals. That's what's driving it. But we also have to comply with state policy. So we've got the Oregon Transportation Planning Rule. We've got the climate-friendly, equitable communities rulemaking that's been going on. Regionally, we've got a regional transportation system plan and a function plan, and then also we've got Clackamas County. So we've got all of these things that have to kind of come together and capture so many of the different goals and policies of all these different planning organizations, but most importantly, driven by what we want here in the city of Milwaukee. Okay, so one of the pieces that we did, which is it's different for the transportation system plans, and this is part of the climate-friendly, equitable communities work that's come out of the state, is that we need to do a community profile. And so we were the first folks out of the gate to look at how to kind of structure this community profile. We think we ended up with a pretty good profile. And so we need to establish a shared cultural and historical understanding of the growth and development of our city over time. We need to look at the people who live here and now, and then also look at especially underserved populations. This helps us inform the community engagement strategy and the equity analysis that we're now ultimately need to do for the state requirements, and like I said, respond to the state requirements. So let me just talk a little bit about what the community profile is. So it's broken down into two sections. You can go ahead and switch it, Jim. We've got the first part one is Milwaukee's historical and cultural context. And this is a narrative that seeks to establish a shared cultural and historical understanding of the city's growth and development over time. And it highlights the trends and public policy decisions that have significantly shaped the city economically, culturally, and physically. Most importantly, it provides the context for Milwaukee's existing transportation system and underscores how discriminative policies, including those related to transportation, zoning, and land use, have excluded and harmed underserved populations in our past. It also includes a more recent history of the actions that the city and the community have taken to redress past and current discrimination. So in that part, I'm going to give full credit 100%. If you all read that, that's in the packet. It was actually...
I don't think it was in the packet.
Yes, it was provided with links. All of the links, I provided links to all of the... Yep, sorry, it was all linked in the packet. So, well, so hopefully you'll go back and read it. But the good news is, Mayor Beatty, is that you've already read this particular piece of all these documents. You've already read it. Because this actual historic narrative came straight from the comprehensive plan. Because what we realized is there had been so much work that had already been done between the comprehensive plan committee and then also work that the city manager's office had done. And we also felt like it was really doing what the state had asked us to do as far as transportation planning goes. And we were fortunate enough that we as a city had already acknowledged a lot of the historic racism that had gone in here in Milwaukee and in the state. And so we already had that really excellent history written up. So this team can take no credit for that narrative. That was done before me, and I'm very thankful to all the people that worked so diligently on that, because it's really important to set the context. And then the second piece of that is looking at data, going in and understanding who lives here and using the best data available also for underserved populations. And it's a little tricky because we use American Community Survey data, and there's a large margin of error, so we can't extrapolate a lot of really accurate information. But what we can do, this here is pretty easy. This is an easy one, is that we just wanted to kind of look at the population here in Milwaukee and kind of understand how it's grown over time in comparison to, the United States and Oregon and Portland. And we have been at a very slow growth rate, much slower than our neighboring communities, and partially that's because we're very landlocked. We don't have a lot of room to go out, so eventually someday we're going to have to go up. And then the next one is, so we also looked at kind of the racial composition of the city, and what we were really trying to do was, obviously we want to know who all lives here, and then also see if it's possible to understand whether there are any patterns or there are any areas of the city where there are underrepresented communities living, that we want to be able to pay very specific attention to around land use and transportation policies. And what we've kind of discovered that here in Milwaukie is those mapping, there's such a large margin of error that you can't actually kind of isolate these folks. That means that everybody's living all together with each other pretty much, except for we're going to look a little bit more into the income differences between, say, one half of the city compared to the other half of the city. But when you look at it, we know that we have different pockets of different people living all throughout the community. It's not like, for instance, when you have the Jade District in Portland, there's a very specific concentration of people that live there, but we don't have that here in Milwaukie. We have a lot of different folks living in different areas of the city. All right, Jen, you want to? All right, so here's just a little bit of information. And like I said, there's a lot of information in the community profile in the data, and I'm just giving you some very highlights on it. Here we've got 37 to about 45%. This is all margin of error. We like to have the margin of error just to be clear. Renter occupied households. We're kind of like the state, a little higher than the county. We've got 5 to 8% of folks living below the poverty line. We have a lower median household income than comparable metro cities as well as the county. We've got about 8.3 single parent households. At least 3 out of 4 are female head of household, just like mimics the state and the county. And then we do have folks here living with a disability, about 11 to 15%. And then 2% of couples household are the same sex. And what I'd like to just say is that it's really important just to note that sociodemographic traits are important, kind of not for their own sake, but because we know that these characteristics, an individual's race, age, housing status influence what transportation options are available to them, how safe they are, how much of their income transportation consumes, how often they need to travel, and how far they need to travel. So all of these things don't define a person. All of these things together, I think, define people, and it really starts to impact the way that people access transportation and what their transportation needs are. We know that the data itself has limitations, but we hope that it provides a basic understanding of who lives here. And through the community engagement, we can learn how to better understand the transportation needs for all different kinds of people that live in Milwaukie and build a system that works for everyone here and in the future. So I don't know if you all have read the profile. It sounds like maybe some of you have not read the profile, so I don't know if you have any particular questions about it, but I can just kind of keep going. And then maybe there would be another opportunity to talk about specifics of this.
Is it in the links you gave were to the advisory technical committee?
That's where all of the information is.
Okay. It would have been good to have that more clear at the end, or to have them as attachments. I did not recognize that from this. We're expecting us to go look at those.
Well, I'm sorry that there was a misunderstanding there. I thought that it was clear, and I didn't want to print out all of the pages, so I did not do that. So I apologize for that. All right, so I'm going to move on to community engagement. So the community engagement, this was a photo actually from a meeting that we had here just last week. It was our third advisory committee meeting. It was really great because we got to have everybody in the room and do small group discussions around the goals and policies. And it's part of the kind of 7 engagement opportunities that we have for the community. Do you want to go to the next one, Jen? So we've got 4 in-person community-wide events. Like I said, one for March 21st, and that's where we're talking about the goals and policies. And then coming up, we've got the conditions and needs, future conditions and solutions, and the project list. So those are the things that we're going to meet with folks in person, and then also have a virtual component. And then in addition to that, we're going to have 3 online forums. We're going to talk about the methodology and performance measures, livable streets analysis, and the draft TSD. And so, like I said before, really trying to find ways to engage and reach underserved populations. So we're talking throughout the project at different times, talking to the folks at Hillside Manor. We're also working with the school district on attending some of their events, talking about going to the Milwaukie Community Center, the Wichita Center, and then also if we find throughout the process that we are not reaching more of the underserved populations, that we would do stakeholder interviews or focus groups as needed. And then also we're trying to build upon all of the other engagement efforts that are going on in the city. So we've got some SAFE project outreach that's coming up that we're going to be going to those meetings. Obviously we'll be talking to the NDAs through their through the Friday 8 dates and probably going and talking to all of them. We'll be at the summer events and the farmers market first Friday, trying to just everybody trying to take advantage of all the different events that go on across the city so that we're able to go out to people and not always ask people to come to us. And then, this is what I was going to say. I already said this, March 21st is the big first engagement opportunity. We're really excited about that. And then I'll just talk a little bit about the financial forecast. And this was one of the first things that we did in the project so that everybody that has been working on the project kind of had an understanding of what money might be available, what is our funding forecast, so that we can understand what we might be able to implement in this new project list that we'll be developing. So as you can see, the city generates a lot of revenue through different sources. We've got franchise revenue, taxes and fees, grants, investment earnings, bonds, and these are all the things, all the money that comes in for capital projects. Then we also have a lot of expenditures, so personnel, materials and services, debt service, capital projects. And so then at the end of that, so when you take your total revenue and you subtract out the expenditures over the next 20 years, you've got about 22 million to spend on capital projects. So that equals out to about $1 million a year. So that said, that means that we don't actually have a lot of money to spend on capital projects. So I know that Jen and her team are always looking for opportunities to find grants and ways to get more money for all the things that we want to do, because you go through this TSP process and you get a bunch of projects added to a list and then you have to figure out actually how to pay for all of them. So at the end of the TSP, we know that we'll have a good list and then we'll have to continue to always to look for funding sources to be able to get them built. And I think if you want to go to the next one. And again, this was just a recap of the next steps. The next time that I will be here is May 21st, I believe, because what we have to do is once we go to the community and then we have the survey and then we have to bring all the results together. So the next time I can come to you all is on May 21st. So I will come and talk to you about the goals and policies and give you an update on where we are on the next steps.
Do you want to start with questions?
Well, I just had one question, and well, only one question because I'm in these meetings and I really appreciate how thorough they've been. I was thinking about the data a bit, and I know that Clackamas County has contracted with the Coalition of Communities of Color to do a more in-depth profile of race and ethnicity data across the county. And I think that sometimes that fills some of the gaps that we find in the decennial or ACS data. Mm-hmm. And so I anticipate that should be out in the next maybe month or two. And I'll keep an eye out for it, but I wanted to flag it for you as well in the event that it could be helpful in some of our work here.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I meant to say this earlier that we, on the technical committee, that we have Clackamas County as one of our partners on the technical committee. So Karen will know when that data will be available. So you can ask her. Thank you.
Just a question on the funding forecast. So the 22 million over the 20 years, those funds are just from what's currently on the table, right? That's not taken into account any potential changes and
Yes.
does that account for any grants that we're looking to get possibly? That's
No.
just money that's on the table right
We
now.
have right now.
But it includes the safe bonding money or not?
Not a third tranche.
But
We did a third tranche, and yeah, at this point, I didn't know for sure if we're gonna have that, so I didn't include it.
What is it? Do you know what that off the top of the changes it by ballpark? If you did a third tranche?
It depends on how much we want to go for. So ideally, it would be, it almost double its, another 20 million or so, but it all depends on what we want to bond, what projects we would like to look at. So that's not really nailed down at the moment.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Generally.
But then I would, yeah.
Go ahead, Sandy. Okay.
Council President?
Yes, thank you for this presentation. Just one comment on the underserved communities. I didn't see the Pamplin building on that list. That the county is renovating their social services. I know that we do have some bus service there now, but there was some concern that it wasn't frequent enough. You know what we're talking about?
At the McBride Crisis Center.
No,
No,
it's
sorry.
it's east of Milwaukie, yeah.
Thank you. Is the Pamplin building inside the city limits? Okay, so we did have a conversation with the county about making sure that they had TriMet service, but it is located outside of the TSP area. Thanks.
And so, how does the TSP link with the Hubs initiative?
Well, so what we're doing as part of that is we have that as a particular area that when we go in and we look at the system and what is available, what the transportation system is right around those hubs, we will identify what those gaps are, and then potentially those, depending on how high they rise in the project list, the idea has always been to try to fix those issues around the hubs as part of the hubs program. We knew the TSP was coming, so that was always like, we can talk about what those deficiencies around hubs might be and include those projects in the TSP.
Well, I raised this question because, I heard from this fellow who's sitting behind you that, private investment follows public investment. And to me, you're going to have private investment for the hubs to be successful, which requires public investment up front. And so I guess I think transportation being that public investment. And so I think we, part of the success of the hubs is going to depend on the transportation investment. And I just want to make sure that there's some consideration there. And sounds like there is, but it's complicated.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that. Councilor Savigny is our representative to the TSP committee, so she'll keep us honest to that. The second piece is that I really appreciate how Jess has been treating the urban renewal funding and looking at ways to actually bring in the CET funds to pair with the programming that the URA is developing, so that we can actually invest into the hubs once they're developed with programming in a way that we haven't been able to date because we didn't have the economic development funds. So I think it's a twofer. It'll be transportation and then some other dollars from CET.
Councilor Abma, did you have?
Yeah, I had a few questions, but did you have something that built on that? Okay, thanks. You said that this was last done in 2017, is that what or how often is it updated, I suppose?
It was the last overhaul in 2007. There's been updates in 2013 and 2018, but very small ones.
Okay, so quite some time, all right. And then you mentioned the advisory committee, and I'm just curious how that's formed.
Yes, I'm so glad you asked that because I meant to explain that in my presentation. I forgot because there was a lot of conversation about that. Right? The city council talked a lot about that advisory committee. So what we did is we went out and we asked for folks from all different areas of the city. We asked for people who use the transportation system in different ways. Like, tell us if you ride your bike, tell us if you use transit, tell us if you walk, tell us if you drive. Just talk to us, because we wanted to get a mix of people who use the system in different ways. And we also wanted to get geographic disbursement from throughout the city. So we did an open application process for that. And we had a lot of people apply, and then the city council actually appointed and selected those folks. And then we also have folks from the former city comprehensive plan advisory committees, the public safety advisory committee, the city council. We have a representative there. We have a representative from the planning commission. We have a representative from the equity steering committee. So there's 16 people, and the freight and business, and we have a disabled person on the committee as well. So trying to get a lot of different kinds of people on the committee.
Awesome, thank you. Did you have a follow-up before I go? Okay.
Thank you. I did just want to add, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the next couple weeks, but we are actually going to be asking council to make a switch on who our business representative is on the committee. So it's been Mark Steen, and I appreciate his service. He's lovely. He actually talked to Jay, the head of the chamber, the executive director of the North Clackamas Chamber. Jay is actually interested and willing to serve for the business interests for the city. On the committee for the remaining dates, if that is amenable to you all. And then we also are looking still for a freight contact, and Councilor Stafford has a connection that we're going to try and leverage to make sure that those voices are being included as we're designing. 30% of our area is commercial, industrial. We really struggle to find the right voices for those two pieces, but we may be adding more, I guess is my point to all of you, if that's amenable for you.
Adding more to the committee, more positions.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks. Two other questions. Did you say something about we're first out of the gate on something? Is that like a new state law and we're the first to implement this, or to be the?
Yeah, we're the first. Well, we're the first folks to kind of do the community profile and look at how we are doing an equity analysis for the city, and also talking about the past, how the system was built out in the past, and looking at how we can seek to fix those things from the past. So that has not been explicitly done through TSPs, although I know that people have always tried to do their best to engage all kinds of different folks. But that is a big difference for this time around. Like last time, it's usually a Title VI conversation that's a paragraph or two, but this is really kind of taking it up to a next level and trying to really actively get more underrepresented folks in the decision-making process.
So we received a $250,000 grant from ODOT to actually make this update and bring in these new items to our TSP.
Awesome, great, thank you.
Well, and we also scoped the project long before the climate-friendly, equitable communities passed. So we're the first out of the gate doing some of the work that we didn't even have in our scope. Mm-hmm. So we've had a little bit of struggle, and there's some performance measure things that we'll have to figure out as well as we go along, because no one else has done it yet in this region.
Okay. And then my last question was, with respect to the community profile, when we were comparing some of our data as compared to Clackamas County, it may be an interesting data point, but I'm wondering how that actually informs how we move forward. The fact that Clackamas County as a whole, a somewhat rural county for much of it, maybe has a higher percentage of population of A or B or whatever, how does that affect us, or was it just a data point for like interest? But does it mean anything at the end of the day?
I think it doesn't ultimately mean anything at the end of the day. I think how it would impact how we do our planning, but it is because we're still going to try to find the people that we need to find here in our community to talk to based on what we know about who lives here. Mm-hmm. But I do think it is provides a little bit of historical information about who has been living here in Milwaukie and who lived here in the past. And I think even though you didn't see the data, our population has been changing. We've gotten a much more Latinx community that's been moving here. So it's more of data points over time to see that things are changing here in Milwaukie where they were not for a very long time. And so I think if you look at the community data, it's tells a little bit of that story, but it's a good point. It's just that we're saying, yes, we kind of just want to know it as a comparison, I guess, of like, what do we look like compared to other folks in Clackamas County? What do we look like compared to the rest of the region? And just trying to understand that, how it impacts how we do our planning. I don't think it does.
Thank you. And maybe Jennifer, I don't know if you're having, like you're on the edge.
I would just say it's also a point in time. This is what we have right here, right now. And so when we go to do the next TSP update, you're able to reflect on what happened at this point in time. And so it's good to have that data as you build.
Move forward.
Yeah.
Thank you. We don't do any comparisons, I suppose, and this may be a nasty word here, but for Multnomah County, because we're right there too, it's like, again, to me, if you were to say, well, here's how we compare to Multnomah or Clackamas, I don't know that it informs how we should proceed. Again, it's just a data point, but do we ever do that, or is it just always Clackamas, for example?
We have done that in other projects. So we have some of that data for, we have a lot of similar data in our recently housing capacity analysis. It's a different set, it's a different kind of community profile, but there is information in that.
Okay, thank you.
Could you go back to some of your outreach slides? You had one at the end that sort of asked, do you have any questions about the plan for community engagement? We kind of glossed over that. So yeah, go ahead and go back. You had a slide where that's the one I wanted. Reaching underserved populations. I mean, yeah, school-sponsored events seems to me important here because there are, that is probably reaching some of the Latinx and other populations. I also want to suggest Northwest Housing Alternatives and Hillside as two places that we probably should be reaching out to.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it is. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, we have Northwest Alternatives. Actually, this isn't all of the places. This is just a few of the places. I didn't put all of the ways that we're doing. This was just kind of, I actually have it on my list of things to do to talk to Northwest Housing Alternatives.
Okay, great. Yeah. I felt like I had another thought for that, but it's escaping me now. I think the timing is good with the conversation the timing of, like you'll be coming, we'll be, sort of finishing this process in the spring, summer, and we'll be needing to talk about, what we do in terms of the third tranche early next year too, which which Jennifer highlighted for us recently. So timing is good for having this info come together before we have that discussion. On freight, I was surprised to hear that you had trouble finding a freight representative because we had several on our annual MLA group back about
several phone calls.
Yeah.
People were interested in the question. They just they didn't have somebody who they were able to dedicate to the 8 meetings. So it's not, and we haven't spent much time with our businesses over the last 8 years. So I think there's a couple of things that go into that. But seriously, if you have names of people that you think would be interested and we can make that phone call, but we made multiple calls.
You tried the ones who were on the NMIA group?
We tried calling through the primary movers of freight in town. So I called the top 4 or 5 companies to see if there was somebody, or we had somebody reach out to them who had a relationship and we just weren't able to generate. And it's critical. Part of it too is I think Jen's done a great job. So we've done some improvements in areas where before those roads were deteriorating. So there's a little less need for them to come convince us to make the changes because we've made changes to Ochico and other spaces where the roads were really terrible in the past. But it is critical for our success for us to hear from our businesses in that 30% of our property.
Yeah.
So if anybody's watching tonight and desperately wants to give up 5 meetings and a couple of community meetings, we are ready to hear you. We really do want this information. It's critical for the success of the TSP. But I understand it's asking a lot right now.
Okay. Counselor Stevens, did you have other questions? You had put your goose forward?
The only other thing that I wanted to just mention is that, there are some parallel conversations happening with the C4 committees. And I don't think that we have technical staff involved in those meetings, but, I'd be really interested in sitting down and talking with you maybe offline about how, and, sorry, for those that are watching, it's the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee that handles, transportation, land use, and some housing, conversations for, all the cities in Clackamas County. And there's a group of cities that are within the urban growth boundary, and then there's another group that meets with cities from all over Clackamas County. So to the degree that we can align our needs that are being reflected in the TSP with the advocacy that's coming down through those conversations, I'd really like to be able to do that.
We were actually just talking that we needed to get together and coordinate a little bit more on that. So, thanks you.
Running? No? Okay. Well, thank you.
I just wanted to offer, if anybody goes in and reads the documents and has any questions for me, please just reach out to me and I will do my best to answer. Definitely.
And just because I really like making sure that I've confirmed this, you all are okay if I bring forward a new member of the committee to replace Mark Steen, and you're comfortable if we do find somebody who does great, bringing forward that name as well. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. All right. Council reports, legislative and regional issues. Mr. Stoffer, we are in the countdown of the past the midpoint, I think, of the short session.
I believe that is the case. You ready? And I've got a little bit of updated PowerPoint for this evening. But, not a whole lot to report that'll be new on here. We're past the revenue forecast. I don't think it was a particular negative forecast. I think it was positive from what I saw. And we're just charging towards constitutional signing day of March 10th. And so based on previous conversations, these are the bills. And we've got bill numbers, and I've checked all this as of this morning, the Oregon Legislative Information System, and here's where things stand that I've heard this council want to track. So the Measure 110 coalition legislation, all are in committee. One has got a hearing or had a hearing on February 7th, and I think I checked and that's all that had been done recently, but I could be wrong about that. So Measure 110 coalition, 2 Senate bills and a housing bill. Anything new on that one? Those ones?
No, I think they're just focusing on the one bill. I think yeah. And I think there's a ton of stuff probably going on that we don't know about. That isn't being done so much in the public eye in terms of there will be some bill on Measure 110.
In the works.
In the works. Yeah.
Then HB 4063, requiring metro counties to plan for housing needs in urban unincorporated areas. I saw it move to a second reading in the House. So I think that one's moved out of committee and is chugging along. Senate Bill 1576, recreational immunity. I know the city manager touched on this last time. I heard a number come through, so I threw it on our list. And I saw that it's in work session, and the work session and the hearing have been held. I didn't see anything otherwise upcoming.
And I have not received any update from anyone at this point, but if I do, I'll let council know.
I was going to say, for those who get the LOC update, there was, there's something every Friday from LOC on this and on the governor's housing bill and on the Measure 110. But I don't know that there's, there was a call from LOC to reach out to senators. So I don't know why the focus was on the Senate rather than the House, but there was a call to reach out to senators on the recreational immunity. I haven't done anything on that one personally. I did do comments on the governor's housing bill and on 363 on my own behalf, but, yeah.
The housing bills are on the list, right? 1337 SP.
But
I think it should be. I don't know why it's not on there. I apologize to council to make sure to add it.
Oh, it's not.
yeah,
1537.
Yes.
37.
yeah. And I think it seems to be moving.
Yeah, they just adopted an amended version, or adopted an amendment to it.
I mean, at this point, I guess I'm not, there's nothing I'm planning to write letters on. I don't know if anybody else has anything they feel like they want us to weigh in on. But there's, you know, I think 110 is going to go how it's going to go, and the same thing probably with the governor's housing bill. So I'm not planning to propose any further comments, but I don't know if anybody else has anything they feel like we should be commenting on.
There were just a couple of the bills I was going to mention real quick. And they're largely from the world that I tried in records and city recorders. You may recall last session, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission was given the authority to lay down the law in terms of public meetings laws. Apparently, they're asking for a little more teeth to that authority to give guidance on public meetings. It looks like they're headed to be getting that moved to a first reading in the House. And from what I've heard, it's likely to pass. I think that just bolsters what was done last session. And then there were two that I'm a member of the Public Records Advisory Council. And I wasn't aware that there were two bills until last week were put forward directing that council to study records and report to the legislature. So I get the impression those were placeholders. But just in case you saw them, you're wondering, I don't know anything what that's about. But yeah, to the mayor's point, the only other thing that I had on the council's radar for legislation was there was a letter, the Clackamas County Children's Commission. There was a letter that council signed off on, and the mayor sent it off last week. And that's pretty much it. So are there other topics or issues legislative that we want to put on the list? I apologize, Councilor Casarabati, about the housing one. We'll make sure it's on there. It's on our spreadsheet. I just cleared it and transferred to the PowerPoint.
I was going to say, you know, we sent that letter that everybody agreed to last week. I also was on hand to testify at that hearing, but it ended up they didn't have time for everything that was at that hearing, so I was online for an hour and a half, but I did not end up testifying. I think I reported out in an email that there were a lot of asks of that. You know, they called it a capital improvement plan funding, everything from the Hillsborough Hops Stadium to the Clackamas County Courthouse, to, you know, much smaller things. But I guess I'm not overly optimistic that the child care center will get funding, but maybe there will be a focus on child care, you know, by the people who make the decisions. I don't know. I guess we will find out. Go ahead.
I actually wanted to ask you about that. You sent an email out earlier about the child care. There was a committee that former Council President Nicodemus was on. You said it is active.
It is.
I want to talk more about that.
Well, I sent you the minutes. So there's they call it C5, unlike C4 or 5C or something, you know. So it's Clackamas County Children's Child Care Coalition. That's it, coalition. Clackamas County Child Care Coalition. I did send you guys the minutes from their last meeting. They are meeting. They did, there's a early learning hub within the county office that sort of manages that. And I did ask to be put on the list so that I would, you know, get the invitations to future meetings. I'm happy to share that with anyone who wants, you know, if someone else wants to take that on, I'm happy to share that.
We'll join you.
Yeah? Okay. Okay. And I also, I mean, I don't want to, so I'll wait till we're finished with legislative, but I did also raise a question about whether we want to do childcare as our topic at our Clackamas Cities dinner. But let's finish with legislative first. Any other things on the legislative? I feel like Councilor Stavanger probably follows some of that for her day job. Nothing we need to know, or
No, I think this was a good summary.
yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
great. All right. Sure.
So I did find my lost homework from the Water Consortium. They were in my snow boots for my Alaska trip. Found them right before I came to the meeting. At any rate, the consortium adopted the strategic plan. Peter and I had reviewed that earlier. It was actually quite well done. I liked how they tied up their actions to an actual budget with dollars and cents. So I like the way that they did that. Lake Grove has joined the Water District as a new member. And we approved the 24-25 budget. The dues have increased by 7%. And the major reason for that is that almost 9% of the budget comes from the Portland water staffing, and so they've had some cost of living increases and that kind of thing. So it sounds like a lot, but I think a lot of people are facing those kinds of issues. They'll be going through their annual data request here pretty soon. Peter pretty much handles that, where they, things like water usage and boundaries and that kind of thing, because they always want to keep the data up to date. I'm sure that's always changing to a certain extent. There was a mention that there was going to be the potential for some water infrastructure money in Housing Bill 1537. So I don't know how far it's buried in there, but there is the potential for possibly some funds for water infrastructure in 1537.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Council President, there is funds, it's not just water infrastructure, it's actually for general utility improvements.
Okay.
So if council is interested in the future, and how you get to those funds is a little complicated, so I'm always cautious.
It always is.
I will also say thank you to Kelly Brooks.
Okay. Yeah. And we had a speaker there from the Oregon Health Authority that runs the safe water drinking activities for the state. They have it's a fairly small group. It's like 20 or 30 people or something like that. But it was interesting. If you were a scientific nerd, you'd love this presentation that you gave. But what was interesting to me is that there are there is just an incredible number of water districts in the state. There's like 3,300. And so this small staff kind of has to cover all of that. And they range from Portland to one water district, it's 4 households.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was kind of an interesting, kind of offbeat, I never knew that kind of thing, but that's what's going on in the Water Consortium.
Let me just say, votes last Friday on the LOC call, and it's my understanding that some of that infrastructure money came out of, it came out of 1537, and that there's a separate bill called HB 4128, and I sent a link to that is specific, as opposed to just saying here's a pot of money and the state agency can allocate it. It's actually specific allocations to a list of like 40 cities. It includes the Oak Grove Water District was one of them. There were a couple that were not cities, Oak Lodge Water Services rather, and Clean Water Services, but they ranged from don't know, $250,000 to $3 million. And yeah, there was a list of specific, and the LOC seemed to think that was what was going to move. Yeah, I guess we'll see. Time will tell. Other council reports?
Thank you, Mayor. I had mentioned earlier that I attend the C4 meetings, not to be confused with C5 or 5C. At the last meeting, we talked about MTIP amendments, which for those of you who may have been paying attention to these updates for the last year, we've been talking a lot about regional transportation plan. There's MTIP, which honestly, I can't remember what it stands for. It's like Metropolitan Transportation Improvement something. I know there's at least one person at home watching saying, I know. So the conversation is starting up around what sort of projects would be eligible for these funds. And I'm also getting up to speed on this, and I know you sat in on the JPAC meeting, and so I might rely on you a little bit more here. There's a regional flexible fund allocation, and I think that that's part of the 2026 MTIP adoption. So I'd love to know if that's your recollection of this as well. But this is the beginning of the conversation, and there are at least a couple more meetings where we'll get similar presentations. So I'll double down on I'll get up to speed. The MTIP is adopted every 3 years, and the projects receiving funding, it's all projects that receive federal funding in a region have to be included in an MTIP. So it can be regional and it can be special projects. And one of the things that I noticed was that the areas that are called out for evaluation for MTIP projects to be successful intersect a lot with the areas that have been identified for focus in our TSP. So equitable transportation, safe systems, climate action, resilience, mobility options. And then there's a new category for evaluation called thriving economy, which is really access to jobs and employment areas. It's a little bit different than in the TSP. The terminology that we're using is economic vitality, but I think that there's some intersection with the regional transportation plan, the larger transportation conversations that are happening, and I don't know if that would have an impact on our, competitiveness for these funds. So I will bring back more updates as I have them. Yeah, and I know, Mayor, they may have shared more in the JPAC meeting, so I'd love to hear what you picked up from there.
Yeah, so the reason I even tuned into the JPAC meeting and the C4 meeting was to find out about the MTIP. So those who don't know, MTIP is how the region allocates transportation dollars, and the RFA, the RFFA, the RFA and the MTIP. And I saw that they were discussing, I think from maybe some of the notes from one of Councilor Stavengeor's prior notes was that they're doing 2027 to 2030. And I was like, oh, all the way out to 2030. Wait, we want to be in that conversation. So the MTIP, like some of our Monroe Greenway was funded through MTIP. That's where that, those kind of projects go for funding. So I wanted to understand the timeline for the decisions that would be made for the 2027 to 2030 funding pot. And what I came away with is that there will be a call for projects this fall, and there will be a call, and then there will be public, they usually put them out there, Metro puts them out there online, and people can go in and do comments, and then there will be a culling and a prioritization, and that it's by, I think it's by next summer, 2025, that they'll be trying to get to the list that is the projects for 2027 to 2030. They estimate that they will have $1.1 billion in that pot. It was a metro planner named Grace Cho who's kind of leading that effort. So I just wanted to understand all that because I think, we have projects that we may want to think about. It's hard to think about something that's still 3 years away, especially when we're just now, we're still a year away from getting, really launching on Monroe. So it seems kind of odd to be thinking about these other projects, but maybe we should be. And so Railroad Avenue is one that we've talked about in the past, like the connection along Railroad Avenue. Another one that's on my mind is seeing whether there's any possibility to revive the Oak Grove, Lake Oswego Bridge idea. And so I wanted to understand our timeline for having those conversations. And I think what I took away from it was, we need to be ready this fall with things that we want to, if there's something we want to pursue, we need to be ready this fall to be talking about that.
Yeah. I wrote down 1.2 billion.
Oh, you got more.
Or we lose 100,000 in translation from C4 to JPAC. That's a possibility.
Right.
That total amount does not include tolling or congestion pricing revenue.
Right.
So just to be specific there, and then the RUFA, which is the Regional Flexible Fund allocation, is about 5% of that pot. The other thing that I would mention as we're thinking about some of these projects to either, workshop or prioritize by the fall is that the application pool sometimes leans toward larger jurisdictions in their selection, but you can focus regional priorities. And so the C4 conversation that's happening right now is what sort of commonalities do the cities share so that we might be able to apply as a regional, like a geographic focus area. So more to come on that. And I know transportation is not always the most interesting, but it is fairly lucrative for the projects that we need to prioritize for the city and through the TSP. So we'll have more coming soon.
Thank you. Other council reports? All right. Well, then there is the question I raised about our council dinner. And the city manager said that maybe you were going to look at what the other cities were doing before us. Did that conversation happen?
No.
Okay.
Well,
Pardon?
but we're happy to. We can send an email to them.
Okay. It'd be good to know, because we talked about doing housing, and maybe that's still what we should do, but it'd be just good to know that none of the other cities between now and June are doing housing, or child care, and then we can, make an educated decision.
Estacada is doing it this month.
Yeah.
And so that'll leave the March, and April, May. That's sliding into June. I'll check.
Okay. The March meeting and then the April meeting that's sliding to early May, right? Yep. Okay, so 2 more meetings before us. Yeah. Okay. Right. Any other topics for the good of the order? Oh, I see Council President Massey.
Did you want to continue this discussion about the volunteer selection?
Oh, sure. So go ahead.
I'm not pushing any changes. I just kind of wanted to get it out there and everything like that. And so, I think the this is kind of like a pick one, by the councilors, and then it seemed to be an on the fly decision when it came back 2, 2, and 1 that says, okay, you got to vote for the top 2. Well, I don't know. Maybe that the 5th person didn't want to vote for the top 2. I don't know. But that was kind of the on fly decision, and so. There's other models we could use. I mean, we could vote for the top two and put points to the number one selection, number two selection, and, do it that way. I mean, you have to accept that possibly, one of the candidates who was picked number two by a lot of people in the council could end up winning if you assign points to those. So there's other models to use, but I'll just throw that out as a lift-off point to see if anybody else wants to chime in.
Ranked
And I'm
choice.
not advocating change. I'm just kind of saying there's lots of options out there.
Well, I guess there's two issues. One is the actual voting, and one is the conversation, the deliberation, the conversation leading up to voting. And that's, to me, what has always felt awkward. I've always felt like I wanted to say more about why I was voting the way I was, or why a certain person rose to the top for me. But it was also like, people don't want to, is that somehow devaluing other candidates, or, so, I mean, it's generally something the council has steered away from, but it's always felt a little awkward to me, I will say. Counselor?
So along those lines, and then also just kind of reflecting on the process that we just went through in the appointment, I realized this is not a, selecting volunteer of the year is not the same as determining an appointment for a council vacancy. But something that really struck me is that we had so many people who were here, who had given their time, who had really brought a lot of wonderful contributions. And it feels, I mean, we all appreciate those things, and we probably all had a whole list of things that we really loved and appreciated about the folks that were stepping forward. It feels weird to me as well to not express thanks for the gifts that people have and what they contribute, especially in the Volunteer of the Year award. So, I mean, I would like a little bit of time to give thanks to the people who have stepped up. I don't know how.
Well, I mean,
we're supposed to do that.
Well, I mean, I think we try to give thanks to all of them and trying to recognize all of them as being, as being important contributors to our community. But the question is, in terms of moving to vote for one or another, that's what we haven't called out, one or two, haven't called out specific people.
We might joke about ranked choice voting, but there's something to be said for the for the consensus building to get to the point of selecting amongst all of us, or or the 1, 2, 3. How popular that was last week.
So ranked choice voting, I think, becomes harder for the staff. I mean, it's Scott who's sitting there tallying. I guess Jason
I
maybe
think
helps.
Jason is in the middle of it too, but we can figure it out if that's what y'all want to do.
Yeah. Other views?
So, I don't know how many nominees, we already received all the nominees, now it's just a matter of choosing, right? And I don't know, I mean, ranked choice voting gets tedious if there's 23 people. If there's 2, it's less, so I don't know how many there are.
10-ish. It's 10-ish.
Okay,
Maybe 12. Yeah, it's not 20.
okay. It's coming back to me now on how we chose the last one. And that it is this, there's this tension that you want to discuss the great things that some of these folks are doing. And what I know that I felt in the past is that I didn't know all of the 10 people or whatever that had been nominated, so I couldn't speak. I didn't feel like without hearing more about them, but then we didn't have the opportunity to hear more about them because it's not the way we approached it. And I know that anyone can nominate anyone, because I think that's the way it is. So I'm not sure that, to your point, like, we want to celebrate everyone who's done all that great work, but I don't know how you do it without offending. If you have a really robust discussion about who should be the one, names are going to be thrown out there. You have to. There's no way around it. And then maybe that bothers some people, so I don't know.
Well, just to assuage my own discomfort, I'm reaching out individually to folks who are sending a card and saying thank you, for stepping up, or but we can all do that individually, just like we submit our own letters for things, stuff like that. So, I don't feel like that part of it has to be accommodated. I'm going to make that decision on my own. But the voting part of it, I feel, when you get a group of 8 to 10 to 12 people, I think that it is important to have a narrowing down process.
So you're in favor of a ranked choice?
Well, I don't know what the methodology needs to look like. I mean, that could be a conversation amongst staff to determine what's easiest on the fly. But I'd prefer not to go into that with just we each get to submit one vote. That would feel too truncated to me.
So I'm good with ranked choice voting. I just try to figure out how we achieve the objectives of having a more robust selection of folks that we might need to select. And I think ranked choice probably gives you that. I just don't know. I think I don't think we want to rank 1 through 10. I'm thinking something like less than 5. I'm thinking like 1 and 2 or 1 and 3. Something like that. I mean, what do others think?
I would think 3 is plenty. Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, some years it's tougher than others. Some years somebody, kind of rises up. But I think, yeah, I think going for 3 is plenty.
So let me throw out another crazy idea. So I'll have to look at the lawyer and the city manager when I say this to get get their body language. What if each one of us takes 2 of the candidates and highlights their contributions?
Oh.
Can we do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that all of us aren't talking about the same person. It's pre-scripted to a certain extent. It can be generic. I would urge us not to get too long-winded.
Oh yeah, we should set some time frames, and I think we should let Jason just assign us each however many, and rather than us picking or anything like that.
We'll probably do by
For everyone. For all 10.
we can do that.
Yeah. Okay. It may not, yeah. Just gonna look up the package. Okay.
And then there would be 3, like we would hear the spiel on why everyone is deserving.
Mm-hmm.
And they all are deserving, by the way. I mean, generally, to some extent. So, and then we would have a vote and say, oh, these are the top 3, and then we re-rank?
It's typically a written vote. It's not, you're not raising your hand.
Yeah, I know, but when you have 10, and you're talking about ranked, are we doing our top 3? Even if that's secret, and then you come up and you say, okay, these are the top 3 names. Now you choose one of those 3. Is that what you're thinking? Or, well, what's it get us if we're at the top 3? What's the next step?
Well, I was thinking along the lines of do some sort of simple, point allocation, but I'm open to other ideas. In other words, if you pick one number 1, they get 3 points. If you pick them number 2, they get 2 points. If you pick them 3, they get 1 point. Maybe it's more complicated than that. That's a way to do it. But I'm just saying it may be a person who's selected who no one chose as their number 1 choice. So I just want to kind of put that out there.
Right. Okay. Which is in some ways a benefit of ranked choice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a negative necessarily.
That's kind of how I saw it. Because you would pick your top 3, and then you'd rank your top 3, and then based on that, you could narrow it down to the two that everybody most had in common. And then from those two, everybody picks one. And then whoever had the most similar, votes, I think that would be the best, right? To slim it down, and then that way it's like,
I'm open to whatever. I understand what Councilor Messie's saying, though. We'd have the three names that were mentioned after the initial calling, and then you would rank them 1, 2, 3 with the points assigned.
I guess conceivably you could still have a tie after that.
Yeah.
Then you're forced into another round.
Yeah. Well, the top two, and then just like in ranked choice voting, that's kind of how it happens, right? I mean, it keeps going until there's the one that gets more than 50% or whatever.
I can't speak for Jason Wax, but I am not a math major. Just want to throw it out there. Poli-sci.
Okay. 11 individuals were nominated. That's what Jason's email says. Okay, so I guess I'm not clear on where we land. I mean, we'll divide the 11 up and we'll all talk about 2, or one person will talk about 3. But I guess I'm not clear where we've landed on the voting part.
Well, it sounds like we're doing possibly two votes. The first vote will be points assigned for first, second, and third by each of you. If it looks like we're at a tie, then we would bring it back a second for just the top 2 or the ones in the tie. We do the same calculation again, and the winning vote would win.
So somebody could win on the first vote.
Absolutely.
Okay, does that sound good? Okay. Okay, sounds like a plan. And do keep, let's say, 2 minutes per candidate. Keep your spiel to 2 minutes. Yeah, okay. Okay. Great, I like it. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. I would then we do not, our original agenda had a executive session after this meeting. That has been canceled. We will not be meeting in executive session. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn the meeting.
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. None heard. We are adjourned.